Okay. Alright, PoE2 got an announcement. Let's see. Like we mentioned last week, we'll be adding capacity for fast travel between checkpoints within an area, as well as adding many more checkpoints to areas, generally at all entrances and exits to areas, meaning if you find these first, you'll be able to instantly travel to them to continue exploring. That's nice. Maps are way too big. We'll also be making passive point respecking cheaper, especially at higher levels. It had a relatively aggressive curve, getting more expensive with character level. We have flattened that curve so it doesn't exponentially grow as much. This should generally result in approximately 40 to 50% less gold cost for respecking between the start and middle of endgame progression. Nice. Trial of the Sekimus. Let's see. Players were finding the Trial of Sekimus particularly frustrating in close range, so we reworked how honor damage scales when in close range, as well as fixing an important bug that was causing players to take far too much honor damage from damage over time. Honor damage now scales down based on distance to enemies. When in close range, you'll take 35% less honor damage, tapering off as you get further away. That's nice for melee. Oh yeah. Fixed a bug where damage over time was dealing thrice as much damage to honor as intended, and fixed the bug where honor resistance was only applying the 2/3 of that damage. This was confusing for us too. I think somebody said like the lava ticks from some of the stuff hits like 20 times a second, so it would like if you take that one thing that removes 5% of your life and energy shield whenever you get hit, it'll like insta-gib you and take all your honor. Alright, Skitter Golems no longer use basic attacks and instead now just explode. I didn't have any issues with that, but who knows. Serpent Clan's burrow and ambush attack has improved telegraphing and cannot be used from as far away. Congratulations. Telegraph upgrades are exactly what I'm all about. Volcanoes created by the Fissure Slam now last half as long. Also good, it got a little clustery in there for that boss fight. That's what, the first boss? Alright, endgame and monster balance. Generally, the balance in endgame maps was more punishing than intended, so we've toned down the damage in a number of ways and disabled certain on-death effect where the telegraphing was not clear as it should have been. Thank goodness. Telegraphing. That's what it's all about. Telegraphing, and we need stronger cooldown skills. I'm telling you. Alright, let's see what they actually did. Maps no longer have additional elemental resistance penalties inherently applied at tier 6 and 11. It's now consistent across the entire endgame. Nice, so I'll be resistance capped with this patch. Chaos damage now also scales less aggressively over the endgame. Critical strikes from monsters now deal 40% less bonus damage. Maybe that's why we were getting insta-gibbed. They lowered the baseline monster density of breach encounters. Yeah, there we go. Primarily by reducing the frequency of the elite monsters appearing. Disabled the volatile crystals modifier. We'll revisit this in the future pending telegraphing improvements. Very nice. Purple explosives created by the volatile plants modifier on rare monsters now deal significantly less damage. That's another one that was super annoying. Nice, and it wasn't telegraphed well enough because there's too many other projectiles on the screen to actually see that stuff. What else? The Siphon's flash charges mod now drains 10 times less flash charges. It was unintentionally draining too many. So this should result in a generally easier endgame that is more survivable than before, and will continue to address problematic cases as they arise. Alright, next thing we got character and item balance. Alright, we've made charm modifiers on belts substantially more common and now appear at much lower levels of the inscription, and onwards now appear from level 23 onwards. I'm not sure what they are, so I'll have to look it up. Electrocute is now 25% harder to build up, but the damage penalty has been removed from the support gem. Okay, so harder to stun with Electrocute. Added a new lightning damage and Electrocute cluster to the passive tree between the ranger and the monk. It's now more difficult to chain freeze enemies by reducing the amount of freeze buildup applied after the first freeze has been applied. The Hunter's Talisman notable now grants +1 charm slot. The small passive skills leading up to it now grant the stat it formerly gave. The charm helper text has been updated to indicate that you cannot have more than 3 charms unlocked, so that we can add more sources of it in the future. Skill and support gem balance. Since launch, we've unfortunately had to nerf a few skills that were far too overpowered. How do we define overpowered? Basically, it's a situation in which a certain skill is so powerful that players feel no other method of playing the game is viable. Generally speaking, we're trying to do this in a way that doesn't make a build bad, but we can make mistakes. Ideally, any truly meta-shifting changes will only happen at the same time as a content patch with a new league to play in. But that doesn't mean we haven't been looking at underpowered skills and support gems. We've got a number of changes planned that should improve some of these skills. The full list of changes will be in the patch notes, but here's a sample of what you can expect. Improvements to rolling slam and all shield skills in the mace section. Improvements to various bow skills, especially the skills used to generate frenzy charges. Improvements to bone spells and cash damage over time spells in the occult section. Good call, because they all suck. Improvements to various crossbow skills, especially those at higher tiers. Improvements of some of the underachieving quarterstaff abilities. Oh, cool. Alongside all these skill gem improvements, we've also done a pass over the support gems. We've added 2 new supports and removed or lessened the penalties on many others, notably the fire, lightning, and cold exposure supports. They added a tremor support gem, which can be used to give up to multiple more aftershocks to skills with a damage penalty. Added the bidding support gem, which can be used to give more damage to the command skills of your minions. The fire exposure, lightning exposure, and cold exposure support gems no longer penalize damage of the supported skills. They now have a mana cost multiplier of 120%. There are also some notable nerfs to a few of the remaining overachieving skills. Skeletal Arsonist spirit costs now match the other 2 skeletal mages. This should result in a slight decrease in the number of arsonists at higher levels. A nerf to the damage over time component on very high levels of Tornado and Vine Arrow. These were never intended to be dealing damage themselves, but more so act in a way for other skills to propagate damage. And Magnetic Salvo can now only use your stuck lightning arrows as opposed to those created by your party members. Oh, what did they do? As we wind down for the holiday season, I guess that's going to mess up Epi's build, right? Or Epi's like team strat where they all pile in and do those arrows over and over again. As we wind down for the holiday season, we wanted to thank you for our most successful launch so far. We could not have done it without all your support. A lot of our team will begin to take some much needed rest over the next few weeks, but we look forward to getting back in with the new year, refreshed and ready. Exciting year of development in 2025. Happy holidays. They nerf some shit, they bust some shit. I still think a lot more needs to be done, but everything I see so far looks pretty cool. Hopefully your PoE2 experience is better.